Hi, everyone. Okay, it's 12:03, and I think we can go ahead and safely get started. Can everyone hear me?
Yes, I can hear you.
Awesome. And just for that, I'm going to give you a
Yes.
giveaway.
Oh,
So is it Tisha?
yes, Tisha.
Tisha, okay, because you are on video with me, and looks like we're the only two actually on video, I'm giving you a free 30-minute session with me to look at PR for your business.
Oh, perfect. Great. Thank
Yeah, so we're going to do some evaluation. So I really want to welcome everyone to this session. I'm really excited. I'd like to thank uh, Dr. Sterling Carter and Stephen Carter, who are spearheading this whole initiative. And so it's been amazing so far. I've gotten a lot of great feedback from people who are participating in some of the other sessions. So hopefully you all will get something great out of this. We do have about 21, I think, or so people we're expecting. So folks will be jumping in as we go along. So today we are talking about customer expectation and demands in this post-COVID world. And I did make some slides. So I do have some slides that I'm going to share with you. And we have Miss Kayla Johnson, who is helping us with the tech aspect of it. So I appreciate that, Kayla. And I think I'm able to take over. Is that right, Kayla?
Yes, you should be able to share your screen. If not, I'll assist with doing so.
Thank you so much. Okay, here we go.
Perfect. We can see your screen.
Okay, so the name of this session is What Will My Customers' Needs and Demands Look Like Now and the Foreseeable Future Post-COVID? So that's why we're here today. I am Misty Starks. For those of you who don't know me, I'm the founder of Misty Bloom Media, and I also own another company called 3B Resources Group Public Relations. And just to tell you a little bit about myself and why I'm sort of qualified to talk about this, I have a media production and public relations firms, and I started one of my companies 6 years ago. Well, in addition to being an entrepreneur, I also have worked for some of the major corporations in Houston and in other cities. And one of the things that I found is universal is no matter what kind of business you're in, no matter whether you're an entrepreneur or you work for a major company, the bottom line is you have to be in touch with your customers or clients in order to stay in business. And what that boils down to a lot of times is communication. And being that I'm a communications professional, that's kind of where I fit into this space. And so I'm happy to talk about that today. There's been a lot of change in our world since COVID, and that change trickles down into our businesses. So let's go ahead and get started. So what we're doing today, as I've mentioned, is we're examining the new needs of customers and how your business can be both proactive and responsive to those needs. Um, of course, we're all navigating COVID, and we keep talking about a post-COVID world. I'm not sure that such a thing exists or will exist. It may be a post-pandemic world where COVID is no longer a pandemic, but I think a lot of people feel, myself included, that COVID is probably here to stay. Hopefully, it will be less invasive in our lives and more, common as we're able to deal with it. But as it relates to business, I'm not sure that there will be a post-COVID world. But that is the term we're going to be using throughout this session. And I'm sure you've heard it before, you'll hear it again. So that's kind of what we're talking about here today. And I want to know who you all are. So I'm at a disadvantage because I don't know who you are. And what I like to do is I want this to be interactive. And so in order for me to do that, I like to know what industries you're in. So if you wouldn't mind putting in the chat what industry you're in. I imagine being in Houston, if many of us are in Houston in Fort Bend County, there's probably, a real estate agent in here somewhere, or a restaurateur, or some other service provider, maybe an accountant. So I really would like to know what are some of the industries you all are in. Research and development. Okay, thank you, Tisha. What are some others? Research and development. When you say that, what sort of, is it medical or financial or what have you? Okay, catering and bakery, healthcare, healthcare, food. Okay, got it. Research and development and food. Okay, that's interesting. Well, maybe the bakery and catering person can get with the research and development person in food and kind of make a connection there. Warehousing and distribution, professional pet care in clients' homes. Oh, all right, I love that. Okay, this is very interesting to me. Thank you all. Thank you for participating and for putting that in the chat. So it really does help. Wardrobe styling and consulting. Definitely, definitely. Okay, I love that. So one of the first things I want to talk about is in terms of the customer, you are the customer. And you may not be your own customer, but you are a customer. And the reason I bring this up is because in looking at what your customers are going to, I want you to look at your own life and think about what you're going through as it relates to COVID. So, you know, do you cook more at home? Are you still going to restaurants? Are you ordering your food, your groceries to be delivered? Or are you going to the store and letting the people put it in your car? Or are you going to the grocery store and you're going shopping like you always would? What things are you doing in your life that are different since COVID and that are the same? So when you think about that, you are the customer. You are someone's customer and someone is your customer as a business owner. But your experiences probably aren't that much different from the average person. The good thing about COVID, if there is a good thing, is that we're kind of all in this together, and it kind of does level the playing field in some aspects of our lives and our businesses. So I definitely want you to keep that in mind as we go through and as you're thinking about what you can do in your business to meet the needs of your customers now and into the future. So, you know, as I said, you're looking at the things that you've changed or that are staying the same. Do you think twice now before you run the Target? I know I do. I haven't been inside of Target since what, October, which had nothing to do with COVID. But I mean, you know, I shop at HEB, but I don't go in anymore. I order online and have it delivered, or I'll go and do the curbside. So the reason I'm able to do that, or the reason I feel comfortable doing that, is because of the communication I've seen from different stores and businesses as to what they're doing and how they're handling COVID. And so you as a business owner, you definitely want to be mindful of that as you not only look at what you need to do now, but how you can anticipate the needs in the future of your customer as things continue to change. So we know that, you know, when everything first happened and we were all shut down and you couldn't go to restaurants and things of that nature, you had to operate a certain way. Then as things began to open up, we were able to change and adapt our behaviors based on that. Businesses have to do the same. And one of the terms that I've seen floating around there is called live businesses. So to have a live business model means that your business is actually almost like a living, breathing entity where it constantly changes. So you have to be in a mindset of change. Some people, they embrace change wholeheartedly, and some are slow to embrace change. So think about that as you're figuring out what to do next in your business, how to pivot, how to meet the needs of your customer. Okay, in what ways are you listening to your customer? Got ahead of myself. One of the action items I'm going to ask you all to consider doing is conducting, whether it's a listening tour, whether it is a survey. You know, here's a resource for your free resource, which is SurveyMonkey. Definitely listen to your customer. Some customers, so for instance, you know, my hairdresser, you know, she totally listened to her customers and she wanted to find out what would it take to get you back in the chair. And that's one of those industries where a lot of people are very, very hesitant to go back to your barber, your hairstylist, etc. So her question to us was, what would it take for you to feel comfortable in coming to get your hair done? That really is relative to your risk tolerance, which we're going to talk about later. But she was able to communicate and ask us and poll us. And based on that, she actually sent out a communication saying, I heard you. This is what you said. And in response to what you said, this is what I've done. So now when you come in, only you can come. You can't bring your children. You have to, make an appointment. You can't just show up or do a drop by. You have to, we're going to stagger the customers to where it's only one person in the waiting room. So things like that. And this was early on. So think about your business. How can you listen and really hear your customers? You won't know what they need until you ask them. This is not an environment where you can really just kind of guess. You can't really say, oh, well, this is what they did last year. This is what they're going to do this year, because we know that this is unlike any other year we've ever had. And that's applicable to business too. So you can't assume that what they did before is the same thing they're going to do in the future. Now, it's not to say that they're going to do something completely different. It's just that it's better to know than to assume. And so if you ask them what they need and what they want, they'll tell you, and then you can make the adjustments necessary. So major decisions versus minor decisions. So in some of my research, one of the things that I discovered is, there are some major decisions that a lot of customers are going to put off because of COVID. And you think, what's a major decision versus a minor decision? Well, these days, every decision feels like a major decision because almost every decision can affect your health. And given all of the information that we've gotten, conflicting information about COVID, is kind of like you know, but then you don't know. So Monday, you're washing your hands and you're standing 6 feet apart and you're wearing a mask. And then Tuesday, you're standing 8 feet apart, Wednesday it's 12 feet. So things change. So every decision actually feels like a major decision, a decision that would have been minor 12 months ago. So your customers, when you're thinking about them and they're thinking about if they want to patronize your business or not, you're looking at, they're putting off major decisions, buying a house, buying a car. They don't know if they're going to have a job 3 months from now, 12 months from now. Are they going to send their kids away to college or keep them closer to home because of all of this? Are they canceling or modifying travel plans? Like all of these decisions, they're thinking about in a very nuanced way now, that whereas before it was very kind of like, you do what you want to do. Now you have to take a whole lot of things into consideration. So if you're looking at your business and, I think someone here is, if you're in a food business, for instance, obviously this is affecting you a lot. I would imagine because of all of the back and forth with, whether you're a restaurant or not, all of the limitations that are being placed on us, on that industry, is really going to affect you. So how can you think about that, 3 weeks from now, 3 months from now? You almost kind of can't plan it. That's why you have to have a living, breathing model where you're changing kind of all the time. So in the research that I've conducted, this is what I'm seeing in terms of customers. They actually want something that is adaptable and adjustable to where they are today versus where they were yesterday versus where they may be tomorrow. So one of the things that's going to be a constant theme is fluidity. And how fluid are you able to be in your business so that you can meet the needs and demands of your specific customer? And the other piece to that is your customer may have changed. So, if you are used to servicing, a 30-year-old Black female, college educated with an income of 50,000, post-COVID, it could be a 50-year-old white female or white male, with different demographics. So just thinking about that, how are you going to know that? What things are you doing or can do to help you really narrow down who your new customer is or may be and what their needs are as it relates to this post-COVID world we're living in? So trust. Trust is the number one topic that we need to address when we're looking at customers and what their expectations are and how they're moving about in the world now. Everything is based on who can they trust, what can they trust? Can they trust that when they go into your establishment, they won't walk out with a potentially deadly disease? That's really what it amounts to when they, order but it's not just COVID in the typical sense. So when they order something online from your website, can they trust that their information isn't going to be stolen? If or malware isn't downloaded to their computer. So we're living in an age where we trust almost nothing anymore. We don't even trust what we see with our very eyes. So that makes it a little bit harder for a business owner to, kind of maintain that trust or establish that trust. You have to work a little bit harder because these days we're kind of in a space where things, we don't really trust a whole lot anymore. Can customers trust you to keep them safe? And whether that's your responsibility or not, that is their expectation. So if you're approaching this from the perspective of your potential customer, what is their expectation? And again, put yourself in those shoes. So when you do make your Target run, or you do go to a restaurant or what have you, or even the post office, or even the hospital, I mean, what is it that you expect them to do to maintain some level of comfort so that you can trust that being there is not going to risk your life? They're thinking the same thing about your business as you are about other businesses. So, we talked about this part already, how to instill trust. So how to instill trust. These are some ways that you can certainly instill trust with current customers, potential customers, even peers and even employees. So definitely be transparent. Again, we're in an age where not a lot of people, depending on your stance. I mean, this is certainly not political, but depending on your stance and where you sit with things you watch on TV, you feel like you're not able to trust certain leaders, or again, even locally, you may go to an establishment and you're not really sure. So by being transparent with your customers, that shows them that you are someone who can be trusted. Be impeccable with your word. This is really crucial because, folks are looking for people that they can rely upon to be consistent. So if you say that your store hours are going to be from 8 a.m. to 5 p.m., then let your store hours be from 8 a.m. to 5 p.m. I mean, I know that sounds really simplistic, but you would be surprised because we are in COVID and we know that hours can change, things can fluctuate, but your customers need you to be steady and consistent and impeccable with your word. If you mess up, fess up. If you do something that's quote unquote wrong, just admit it. Admit it and promise to do better and actually do better. That's something that we don't necessarily see a lot of these days. And so that will go a long way to establishing trust. The good thing about us all being in the same boat is that we're all kind of figuring it out at the same time. And so people have more grace. If you do mess up, they have more grace that you'll get it right. You're trying, they see you're trying. So that is a lot of great currency as it relates to trust. And then again, listen to the customer and adjust accordingly. So, your customer here in July may say, hey, I really need a red widget. Come December, I really need a blue widget. So are you able to pivot and add a blue widget to what you offer based on the customer's feedback? Now, this is, of course, within reason. We know that you can't necessarily change your business, all the time, every day dramatically and still be in business, but it is definitely something to consider and even address. So if your customer says they need a red widget in July and a blue widget come December, you might say to the customer, I heard you, I know you need a blue widget. Unfortunately, we're only able to provide red widgets for the next 12 months. And again, that goes well toward providing a transparency, being communicative, and establishing trust. Now, if you have not embraced the virtual world, you're in trouble. I believe everyone on here has embraced the virtual world because you're here and we're doing this virtually instead of being live with one another. But in your business, if you have not embraced the virtual world, then you have some catching up to do. And it kind of doesn't matter what industry you're in, whether you provide a physical product or a service that relates to you actually being in the office. There is an expectation of most customers that you have some sort of presence virtually. So what does that look like? People do expect to be able to go online and Google you at a minimum. They expect to be able to find you on, you know, a website or somewhere on social media. They expect to be able to connect with you and interact with you in a virtual manner that doesn't require them to get in their car and drive somewhere. Even if it's old school over the phone, I mean, that's still virtual. It's not digital, but it's virtual. So having a way that customers can interact with you or buy from you, whether it's a product or a service virtually, is critical. That is something that I found in my research that, according to the experts, is not going away anytime soon, if ever. So surely you have seen the headlines that talk about, you know, are folks ever going to go back into the office? Are they ever going to go back to work? Well, yeah, some of them have, some of them never left. But it goes beyond just being in a physical office. So many people are conducting their businesses from their homes or a remote working location. And so customers are a lot more forgiving, once again, because of that. So if you have not embraced virtual, you have to, like, ASAP, like today. Like, stop and go and do that. No, I'm just kidding. So one thing I do want to ask you all, I kind of want to take a temperature check. I want to know from you, what changes, if any, have you implemented in your business already? If you know, I know we have some folks who are doing food businesses. We have a fashion stylist. We have some folks in warehousing. What changes have you implemented, if any, in your business? Type on in the chat. Or someone saying something?
Hi, Misty. This is Karan.
Hi, Karan.
Hi, I'm a wardrobe stylist, also creative producer and director. But one of the changes that I have recently made, just yesterday, we had a Zoom closet clean out. That's a major change. We rely strongly on me being able to be present in front of the client and walk through step by step. What should the client keep? What should the client get rid of? What are some keepsakes that you can say yes to and just store them away? But just the entire closet clean out process was via Zoom. And we were able to be really productive while we are still building it, and we're making improvements, and we want it to be the best experience for the client. We were able to get it done. As before, I would not have opted for us to do a virtual closet clean out session.
So I think that's very interesting because you all, Karan is a fashion stylist, and so what she does is very visual, is very hands-on. Now there are stylists who are able to, you know, help clients virtually, but I think if that's not what you would normally do, then it's definitely a pivot for you. And I see Liz says that she is limited face-to-face meetings, wearing masks, wiping down touch surfaces in the home that they use. Stavon says in the oil and gas industry, we've moved towards having team meetings daily since we are unable to physically visit job sites. Okay, that's very interesting. Someone said, oh, Tisha said she got a Zoom account to have meetings with clients. Perfect. Okay, I love to hear that. I have another one. Field workers are required to wear masks now. So, you know, if you are in a position to make decisions, if you're a decision maker in your business or in the company you work for, some of those decisions are going to be practical, like we're talking here about wearing masks and changing meetings and things like that. As it relates to your customer, some of those decisions are going to be a bigger pivot, like what Karan has done, where she's had to go online and take that sort of consulting portion online. So if you can imagine someone being in the room with you and going through your clothing versus you having a camera and maybe taking pictures or going live and trying on the clothes, and so that they can interact with you. So I think that's very good that she was able to do that. So I'm going to move on to my next slide, staying home. So after COVID, more people will be staying home. I think I did mention that. So how can your business help your customers be more comfortable at home? So we're all itching to get outside. I mean, I know I am, to go somewhere, beach preferably, but even though we are ready to get back to having drinks with our friends and, you know, date night with our spouses and going out with the kids, I think the reality is that we are still going to be home more now than we were pre-COVID, even though we are still going to get out. And so I think some of the ways that I've seen people getting out is just going for walks and going to the park. But as it relates to your customer, you know, your customer is probably going to be at home more than he or she was before. So is there a way for you to make that a more pleasant experience for them? Maybe not. I mean, if you're in oil and gas or you're in a warehouse, there may not be a direct correlation right there. But if you are, and it could be if you work for an oil and gas company that provides commercial, you know, electricity. I mean, that's something that's a connection there. But if you are, you know, if you own a physical therapy practice and you are actually having to be in a physical space with the client, how can you do that if your practice is here and the client lives there? So I know that Sterling Carter and his brother Stephen, they have started doing they offer mobile services now. So now they're going actually to the client's home. And a lot of people are starting to do that as folks feel more comfortable opening up their home to one or two people versus going to a location where they're exposed to several dozen or hundreds of people. The other thing is, I think with Sterling's business, I believe they have a mobile unit. So they may come to your house, but not inside your house. So you're going to the mobile unit, right? Okay, and so that way it's probably easier to keep it sanitized and, you know, things like that. So again, it's that trust factor. It's you thinking about the customer experience. Is there something that you can do to either bring it to their home? And it may not be physically, it may be virtually. You're going into their home virtually like Karan. You're pulling up physically like Sterling. Thinking along those lines, what can you do to take your business on the road and go where the customer is if the customer can't come to you or doesn't feel comfortable coming to you? So health is on everybody's mind. That is so true. So I used to have this saying, and the saying was, if you're in business, no matter what business, no matter what industry you're in, you're automatically in the marketing business because you have to market your business, right? And then a few years ago, I added on technology. No matter what business you're in, you're also in the technology business. So now I'm adding on health. No matter what business you're in, you have to add on a health component because your customer is thinking about it already. So, you know, myself, I'm a publicist. So I don't really have to come in contact with with mass amounts of people, but I have to take into account if my clients have an event. I have to think as I'm helping them craft their event, how can we craft it in a way where people feel comfortable coming out to an event post-COVID? Are we going to have hand washing stations? Are we going to give out sanitizer? Are we going to give out monogram masks? Like, what are we going to do to help them feel safe and comfortable coming to our event that's promoting your company? So you definitely have to think about health in a new way. I know some of you, like we talked about wiping things down, that's definitely very important. But from the customer experience, and we want to see that as a customer, I don't know about you, but I know I feel a lot better when I see folks wiping down, even when there's nobody in there. That gives me a sense that, okay, you're probably taking care of business. So those are things that you want to do in your business if you're able to. Health is on everybody's mind, and not just physical health, mental health. So we've seen a lot of talk about mental health, about self-care, about, interacting with one another as much as we can, even though we have to stay apart. What role can your business play in connecting people? So, if you have a bakery and maybe you can offer a service where someone can sit, just like, what's that cookie company? Someone just sent me cookies the other day from a cookie company, and the name of the company escapes me, but if you're not normally—
Tiff Treats.
Tiff Treats. Thank you. If you don't normally budget for delivery, maybe that's something new where you offer a promotion and someone can send cupcakes to one of their clients using your service. So just thinking about from a mental health, that might put a smile on someone's face. I'm sure it would. So what things can you do? If it's not a physical health, it might be mental health. It might be technical health. How do you ensure that when your customer interacts with your business, they're not putting their technology at risk of getting sick because they've dealt with your business? So you definitely want to think about that. This is an opportunity to become an expert. Now, in my business, I always think it's an opportunity to become an expert, but looking at it from a broader perspective, you know, we rely on our leaders to tell us, to kind of show us the way, right? And so in the absence of leadership, and I don't mean this politically, I don't mean this just politically, I mean this in your industry. So now is an opportunity for you to become an expert in your field. And how does that relate to your customer? Well, it's probably more effective for your potential customer. So if you, regardless of what industry you're in, again, we're all in the same boat. The big guys and the little guys. Everybody's trying to figure out what's next and what to do. So the folks you would normally rely on, so let's just say you sell soda, and you know that you cannot, your soda, ABC soda cannot compete with Coca-Cola normally. However, now in this new environment, you as a soda maker can, in the absence of any clear leadership in your industry, can become that expert. And so how do you do that? It's by, one, educating yourself. Again, going back to polling your customers or potential customers, taking a pulse of what's going on. I know we are bombarded with news media and things like that, but you have to kind of be aware of what's happening so that you can pivot and so that you can be that expert and that leader in your industry. So if you are not seeing anyone talking about, for instance, you might look at, you know, I know Karan is in the fashion industry, so she might decide to write something about the state of the fashion industry post-COVID, or she might post something on fashion in Houston, specifically post-COVID or during COVID. I've seen a lot of articles talking about people who, because they're working from home, you have on, you know, a nice looking top and gym shorts on the bottom. How does that affect fashion? How does that affect retail? How does that affect the cleaners, your neighborhood cleaners, who is no longer getting your husband's shirts every week, you know, and they've lost business. So just thinking about becoming an expert, you could then take that information and put something out there. Be a voice in your community, be a voice in your industry. Risky behavior. So I love this topic because I have what I hope is an interesting illustration. You know, customers will tolerate risk, but they will gravitate to what's, you know, most familiar to them. And people will be more likely to associate with brands that share their attitude toward risk. So here's my example of attitude toward risk. Let's say you have someone who's doing online dating. This is a real example. And, you know, so I'm just going to tell you, a friend of mine, she's doing online dating and met a nice fellow, you know, they're talking or what have you, and he wants to take her out. He's like, I want to go and have a drink. You know, I want to see you in person. And she's horrified. She's like, what? I'm not going anywhere with you. Not because of him, but because of COVID. Like, how can you ask me out on a date in public to go get a drink when we're on quarantine? I'm on quarantine. And so to her, their risk levels are not the same. And so she's looking at him like he's crazy because he wants to go get a drink. And he's looking at her like she's crazy, like, you don't want to go get a drink? So they're not on the same level. The same thing applies to your business. So if I go to, you know, Chick-fil-A and I get a chicken sandwich and I see them wiping the doors down, and then I go to Popeyes and I see them just acting like it's the same business every day, I'm evaluating my risk and I'm evaluating their risk. So this actually did happen to me. I went to, I can't remember where it was, to get something to eat. And this is early on in COVID. And they had the 6 feet thing. They had the barrier. They were spraying everywhere. Everybody had on the mask. I mean, it was like, wow, y'all are really doing it here. And then I went like a couple days later someplace else, no mask, no barriers, no nothing. It was like a regular Tuesday. And so I had to reevaluate, do I want to continue eating here or do I want to go to the other place where it looks like they got it together? So think about that as it relates to your customer. What level of risk are you at versus what your customer expectation is? Now, they may not always match, and that doesn't mean you have to absolutely revamp your whole structure of your business as it relates to risk, but it is something for you to consider. Some people may not patronize you if you tell them you have to wear a mask to come into your establishment. Some people may not patronize you if you say, I don't care if you wear a mask, because they want masks. So but you won't ever know until you find out. And this again goes back to that listening piece. You have to find out where the sweet spot is for your particular business, for your particular industry and customers. What's the expectation? And of course, weighing that against what the rule of law is that day of the week, as it's coming down from our leaders, our city leaders, and government leaders. So one of the things I want to find out from you all, what is your risk tolerance? Does anyone here, feel like as we open things up, that it's okay to kind of go back to the way things were? No? Yes? Maybe?
Me personally, I'm sorry, this is Starvion. How are you?
Good.
Me personally, I don't think it'll ever go back to the way it was before, just because, you're always going to have in the back of your mind, if you see someone cough or sneeze, or, if they have a cold, is it really a cold or is it something else? And, regardless of if there is a vaccine or if there isn't one, in the back of your mind, you're always still going to wonder. And I'm always still going to take the necessary precautions regardless. With me being in oil and gas and in the refineries and in the plants and different offices, I don't know if those people have been exposed to anything or not. So I'm going to be cautious either way, just to protect myself.
And your customer is not necessarily the average person, right? So you're more of a business to business?
Yeah, in a sense. I deal a lot with, I don't have clients just in the US. I have clients in Mexico and Colombia and Bolivia. And, you go into those places, you have no idea what you're walking into. So.
Interesting. Okay. Anybody else? I love hearing from y'all. So, okay, Liz said, once the vaccine is here, I believe travel will happen more and more, but with safety. I sure hope so. I think we're all hoping for that. And, as we talk about a vaccine, so many people are saying if a vaccine comes out, I'm not taking it, or they're going to wait for people to take it and see how they do. I agree that once a vaccine is here, whether I take it or not, I know that there are people who will take it. And if it does work, then hopefully there will be fewer instances of COVID. And I personally would feel safer doing things that I used to do, even though I don't think we're ever going to go back to a world where there isn't COVID. But so again, as that relates to your business, how do we look at that? If there's a vaccine, what does the world look like then? And what can you do now what can you do in terms of a planning now for then? So looking ahead, let's just say it's January 2021 and there's a vaccine. What does your customer experience look like then versus now? And that's something I definitely encourage all of us to do, is to look ahead, not just next month, because I know a lot of times we're looking kind of month to month because things are changing just that rapidly, especially in the directives that we're getting from leadership in this country. But look six months down the line, a year down the line, and assume that we are in a vaccinated world. What does that mean for your business? And you don't necessarily have to implement plans right now related to that, but even just put it on paper. Assuming that there's a vaccine and more people are willing to come shop at your store or eat at your restaurant or buy your bakery goods, how does that change the way you operate? So I definitely would encourage you to think along those lines. So this is kind of like a summary, you know, audit your customer experience from start to finish. When someone first hears about your business, how do they hear about it? Is it off of Facebook? Is it off of an ad they saw in the newspaper? How does your customer come in contact with your business? And what is that experience like as they go through that process? So they, you know, let's say they saw an ad on social media, they click on it, they go to your website. What's that experience? Can they buy from your website? And if not, how can they buy from you without having to physically come to your store or come to your space? So definitely audit your customer experience. Think about their experience at every touch point along the way. Again, I can't say this enough. Listen to your customer, but more than that, really engage with them so that it's not just a one-sided dialogue. Tell them what you're going through, because how often do we think about what the store owner or, you know, the person we are patronizing, what they're going through in their business, and how often do we extend, you know, grace to them because they're having to pivot? You know, I know a lot of us, myself included, we gave a lot of passes to restaurants. I can tell you that every single time I ordered food to go, trying to support my local restaurants in the area, they got it wrong. Every single time. And I thought it was me. And it didn't matter what level, if it was like a really fancy restaurant or a fast food spot, they always got something wrong. And I'm not that picky. But as I talked to more of my friends, they also had the same experience. Well, okay, so now I need to give them grace because they're trying to figure it out. And I think that same grace will be extended to you, but it's especially prevalent if you're able to communicate with your customer. And then what's your stance? I told you the dating story. Okay, so what's your stance? Has anyone communicated with their audience like, hey, we are really vigilant in making sure that we're keeping you safe. These are the things that we're doing. Or, you know what? We understand that things are crazy right now. We're just going to lay low. We're closed for the next 3 months. Whatever the stance is, make sure that you communicate that to your audience. That trust factor is the foundation of everything, in my opinion. Without trust, just like in any relationship, it tends to fail. It'll crumble. So how do you maintain trust with those you already have trust with? How do you establish trust and credibility with new people? And then adjusting or pivoting when necessary. If there's one thing we've seen in our lives, in our personal lives, as well as our business lives, we have to be nimble. If it's like being like, you know, they're saying like a dinosaur, you don't want to be so stiff and never move. You have to be nimble. You have to be able to pivot. And you can do that effectively if you know what you're pivoting to. And the way to do that is to be in touch with your customers. So it's like a circle. It's definitely a relationship. So these are some action steps. These are some things you can actually do. You know, audit your customer experience, talk to your customer, talk to your peers and see what they're going through. You may not have to reinvent the wheel. You may be able to call a few peers and find out what it is that they're experiencing. Now, questions. Who has questions for me? This was fun. I'm looking in the chat. You can either ask, you know, with your mic off or on, or you can put it in the chat.
So I have a question, Misty.
Yes.
And great presentation, by the way. Thank you so much for presenting. And just a couple of points in regards to healthcare. You were saying what will things look like in 2021? And I think we'll probably stay with these measures in place. And healthcare is just so important for us to be as safe as possible. So I think this is the new norm for us. But my question for you in regards to communicating our stance, do you recommend doing that via email, posting something inside of the place of business? How do we communicate that stance?
I would say, well, my first answer would be however you normally communicate with your customer, you definitely want to continue to take that route because they're expecting to hear from you in that way. But I wouldn't leave it there. There are other, you know, maybe there's new ways you can communicate. So certainly if you talk to your customers, for your existing customers, I would continue to communicate the way you have been. for potential customers, I would also introduce other ways such as social media, such as your website. Your website really is going to be the first place I would go to if I was interested in patronizing your business. So yeah, I would use those methods, both existing and new.
Thank you.
You're welcome. Thank you for that question. Linda Johnson said, because of the heightened level of risks, my concerns are to protect my business from legal risks due to highly sensitive customers. So in terms of risk, protect my business from legal risk. Okay. I missed, Liz said, once the vaccine is over, more travel. 2021 for me still is the same business practices, working with pets. We always wash our hands and tidy up. You know, I mean, there's so much more information on this topic. I mean, we really kind of, you know, gave a high level, but when you really dig deep into it, it really is about attitudes of the customer. And there are so many questions that folks are asking. Companies like research companies and companies like Deloitte and Accenture and those kinds of companies who are really polling customers on a wide spectrum. So we're able to see that, you know, more people do plan to travel, but they plan to travel by car. So what does that mean for your business? And not just someone who's in the travel industry, but even adjacent businesses. So for instance, if you have a business where normally June is dead, June and July are dead because people are traveling, they're on vacation, they're doing all these things. So you don't keep as much inventory because you're not used to having a lot of customers during those months. Well, now everybody's home, nobody's traveling. So now people are coming to your website, they're buying and you're out of stock. You're out of inventory, or you have to scramble, or it's taking you longer to get that inventory in because it has to come from overseas. And we know things are going to be slow because of COVID. So that's what I mean when I say thinking ahead, thinking longer term, really anticipating the needs of your customer and looking at being aware of what's going on in your surroundings and kind of looking at the life experience, which will dictate the customer experience. So again, if you're used to being, you know, dead in January, I mean, you know, we're about to come up on the holiday season, which may look very different this year than any other year. How? Well, are people spending money? Do they have money to spend because of the job situation? So again, when it comes to inventory, you know, or are people going to shop earlier this year? You know, a lot of stores, we're starting to see headlines with a lot of stores won't be open on Thanksgiving. Walmart says they're not going to be open on Thanksgiving. What does that mean for Black Friday? Or Cyber Monday, you know, so just really not waiting until November, but we're in July, you got a good running start. What is it that you can do now and start planning for that will ensure that you're grabbing some of those dollars come November or come October or come August, you know? Thinking ahead is gonna be key. More questions and comments. What tips do you have for finding new customers in the new COVID environment? You know, I really think it's not so much new as it is, I mean, it may be new to you. So it's hard to answer that question without knowing what you're currently doing, because it's not really, not every answer applies to every business, but some things that are applicable to every business, which we kind of covered here, is one, that leadership. You know, becoming a thought leader, speaking up, raising your voice. You know, if you're a shy person, figure out a way to still get out there in front of people. One thing that's changed over the last, say, 10 years or so with social media is we really want to know who's behind the veil. You know, if you remember The Wizard of Oz and the little guy was behind the curtain, and you're like, what? That's who that was all that time? We want to know who's behind the curtain. And so if you are the type of person who's not comfortable being out front, that's okay. But we want to know that there is a person. So it may not be you, it may be your assistant, or it may be your partner or business, you know, partner or whomever, but we want human interaction, and especially now when we have less of it. So if there's a way for you to kind of invoke that humanness in your brand, I think that's going to go a long way. People want authenticity in their brands and in the people and companies they patronize. So they want to know that you have a heart, They want to know that you're tuned in to what's going on in the world, even if you don't agree with it. You know, when all the racial unrest happened, everyone's looking for a statement or looking to put out a statement because the businesses, the companies want to show customers that we're aware of what's going on. We're not ignorant to it. We're not tone deaf, you know. And I don't think that's nothing political. It's just saying to the customer, we are aware of what's happening. So, you know, we live in Houston. We get a lot of, you know, hurricane and weather events. When Harvey happened, you'd be hard pressed not to find a company that didn't say something about Harvey. Same thing. So in answer to your question, I know this is a little long-winded, but just being authentic, showing that you're human, showing that you are aware and in touch with what's going on will go a long way to your brand being elevated above the noise. There's a lot of noise right now and it's hard to break through. That's how you break through. How can we communicate to our customers new pricing strategies? So, you know, that's price is always a delicate and sensitive topic. I think one, explaining, kind of sharing with them, not so much explaining, sharing with them the things that have happened since COVID. And I think that shows people you're not just making an arbitrary change to the price. So for instance, there were a lot of articles out there about the price of beef. So if you go to the grocery store and you want a steak, it's going to cost you more now than it did, you know, 6 months ago. So when I go to the grocery, well, I'm not going to the grocery store, but if I were to buy beef and I'm paying, you know, $15 for something I used to pay 10 for, I'm not blaming HEB. I'm thinking, oh yeah, I know that the prices have gone up. So maybe, you know, maybe I'm not going to buy beef, I'm going to buy chicken. So when it comes to communicating the price change, I think you have to communicate what sparked the price change, and communicate to your customer. I know we're all in this together. And in order for me to continue to provide excellent service and give you excellent products, this is what it's going to take. And so I think that it's communicating. People love to understand what's behind the decision versus just all of a sudden the price is double what it used to be. And then they go away. So if you can communicate, that's a great way to do that. I think we are wrapping up, everyone. I'm looking at some final comments. Counseling, wellness service. I don't know if that was a question, Chelsea. You've transitioned to online counseling and wellness services, which is great. I mean, that's very much in demand. Anything online, especially as it relates to wellness, is in high demand right now. Thank you all. I know I'm getting a lot of thank yous. Thank you so much for giving us, you know, sharing your time. We certainly don't take that lightly. I hope that you got some nuggets out of this. And please, make sure you check out the other offers, the other panelists, the other folks who are going to be offering sessions coming up. And make sure you log on to the platform where you have a whole bunch of information. Thanks to Sterling and Stephen for providing everything for us. Any final thoughts? Sterling, you want to interject anything?
Just great having everybody online. Hope you guys pulled some knowledge from this great presentation. And we're going to be holding these, I think, almost every Tuesday and Thursday. So set it on your calendar and don't forget it.
And guys, if you want to connect with me, I'm on all social media at Misty Blue Media. And here's my phone number, my email, my website, you know, everything but my blood type. So go ahead and connect with me if you would like. And I'm happy to answer any other questions. Tisha, I need to make sure that I get your information so I can give you your prize. And I think that's about it.
I have one last remark before we go. Miss Tisha, I did send your information to Misty. So Misty, just go ahead and check your email. I sent over Miss Tisha's email to you. Also, if you have not completed your questionnaire that was sent to you via email, please go ahead and do so that we can create your post-COVID recovery plan. So the questionnaire is attached to the link in the email that was sent to you talking about the courses. And then our next course is scheduled for next Tuesday, same time at 12 noon.
Thank
All
you
right. Thank you, everyone.
so much.
Thank you.
Okay.
Bye-bye.
Bye.
Bye.